We have in our gospel reading today what are called the hard sayings of our Lord Jesus. It does seem rather strange that Jesus would claim to set us against our parents. Isn't that, after all, rather contrary to the third commandment, to honor thy father and mother? Surely Jesus did not mean to incite us to dishonor our parents. So what did he mean? These hard sayings, I believe, were asking the disciples one general question: how deep was their love for God, for Jesus? Jesus breaks down the general question into these concrete life choices. Can they love God with a love greater than their love for their parents? Can they love God to the point of enduring suffering? Can they love God to the point of giving up even their lives for Him? The sayings that posed these questions to them must have been really hard to hear. Although in fact we might say that they could already answer the first positively. For have not they already left their parents and even their wives and children to follow Jesus around Israel? And as for the next two questions, although they might not have been ready yet to give an affirmative answer at that very moment Jesus spoke the words to them, the disciples would in fact be saying yes eventually. For they each would endure the persecution by their own people, the Israelites, for their belief in the Lord, and they would each receive martyrdom for being His disciple. Hard as these sayings of Jesus may have seemed at first, events and things would unfold in the lives of the disciples, leading them to a love of Jesus that was as deep as He asks for in this passage. The disciples would eventually grow into that love for God that lets nothing else be more important. But this happens slowly with false starts and failures. Remember, they all had run away from Gethsemane and hidden themselves in the cenacle before they learned to stand their ground, proclaiming Jesus as the Christ. Peter had denied Jesus before he became the leader of this band. Thomas had doubted before he proclaimed with conviction that Jesus was his Lord and God. The disciples of Emmaus had given up and were going back home before they learned to proclaim that Jesus had risen from the dead. Indeed, the love for God that Jesus tells us we should have is a radical, all-consuming kind of love. It can be rather unnerving to think about it. But as the experience of the disciples show us, the grace of God is that which leads us to grow into that kind of love as it did them. Left to our own human capacities, we will never have that love. But if we let the Spirit work in our lives, it will lead us there step by step. And that's the good news of it all. Even in our hopes to become good disciples of Christ, it will not be our own powers, but the power of His grace that will make that a reality. And that's one bite.